and welcome. This is NTA Tuesday Live and I'm Cyril Stober. Tonight we shall be looking at the activities of the National Agricultural Land Development Authority, Nalda, food sufficiency and national security. Now, agriculture is one of the ways to economic recovery, but this can only be achieved through harnessing the full potential of the vast arable land, empowering smallholder and large-scale farmers, mechanization, and supporting the drive for food and fiber security. Now, this is part of the mandate of Nalda through the development of land in rural areas so as to guarantee employment for millions of people, particularly youth and women, for better living standards, enhancing incomes, and ensuring food sufficiency while improving national security. In line with the integrated farm estates, the nation is empowering 1,000 farmers from each of the 774 local government areas and the FCT annually, cutting across the entire agricultural value chain and training 37,000 youth as soil doctors and extension service workers. Now, the initiative is to reduce the oversaturated labor market and take more youth out of the streets and crime and criminality. So how can food sufficiency improve national security? This will form the thrust of our discussion, and to lead us into it, let's take this report from our agri correspondent Musa Baba Aliu.
Africa is experiencing rapid population growth in recent times as observed by the United Nations Population Fund. The continent is currently housing about 1.61 billion people, growing at 3% annually.
300 million people are hungry and 250 million are malnourished. This is a real serious thing and we have a lot of work to do.
Central Bank documents show that Nigeria was spending about 6.6 trillion naira annually on food importation.
For a long time, agriculture really got forgotten in this country. In the last 20 to 25 years, people have talked about it casually, but we depended mainly on imports for everything.
Our administration's key strategy is to ensure that Nigeria becomes self-sufficient in the foods that we consume the most.
As such, his government pushed for new policies and programs that will upscale local food production to meet local demand and that of international market. This the administration achieved through the core program, which include the Anchor Brewers program that allows farmers access to finance to boost production.
The program aims to provide farm inputs in cash and kind to smallholder farmers in order to boost local production of commodities, including rice, and to stabilize inputs supply to agro-processors.
Records of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture indicates that despite environmental and social challenges, food production has reached its highest peak for the first time in 4 decades, courtesy of the President administration initiatives. The key players advocated concerted efforts to sustain the success recorded in the agricultural sector to ensure food security that will stand the test of time in Nigeria. In Abuja, Musa Baba Aliu.
All right, that report sets the tone for tonight's discussion. Let's start off by introducing our guests to you. We'd like to welcome to this program Abubakar Atiku Bagudu, who is the governor of Kebbi State and vice chairman of the National Food Security Council. Let's also mention that the governor is also chairman of the Progressives Governors Forum. Governor, thank
you very much for inviting me and having me.
All right.
Good evening, everyone.
Let me also introduce, seated next to the governor here, is Engineer Clement Nze. Is the Director General of the Nigeria Hydrological Service Agency. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
Right. Okay. And also joining us tonight is Prince Paul Ikone. He is the Executive Secretary of Nalda. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you for inviting me, Mr. Good evening.
Right. And also here tonight is architect Kabir Ibrahim. He's the national president of the All Farmers Association of Nigeria, ALFAN. It's good to see you.
Cyril, thank you for inviting me.
Now, you're well aware of the procedure of this program. It's interactive, and at the appropriate time you can get to be part of the discussion in the studio. The numbers will be on your screens. You can take advantage of those numbers and call in. However, we do remind you every Tuesday that when it is that time to call in, go straight to the point. Once your call has been passed through to the studio, your name will appear on screen. It means you can join in the discussion. You just go straight to the point. Don't waste too much time greeting. You know, the greetings don't form part of the program, and you do know, of course, that sometimes the phone lines can be erratic. So as soon as you get through, go straight to the point, keep it short, straight, so others can also get on the platform and air their views. Once again, thank you for being part of tonight's program. Let's start by looking at the state of food security and all that at this point in time in the nation. And let's turn to the governor, who's our guest here, and seeing that you're the vice chairman of the National Food Security Council, it's a fair question to say, are we food secure?
Thank you. Thank you for the question, Cyril. I guess we have been on the right track, and every year we have been making tremendous progress towards being food secure. In the last 6 years, a number of policies, initiatives, and programs, of course you mentioned Nalda, which has been introduced to, among other numerous policies, to help achieve food sufficiency. We should all remember Mr. President Pemo's mantra that let us grow what we eat and eat what we grow, which led to set the tone for this administration's agricultural policy that encourages local production, so that all those in the agricultural space, farmers, fishing communities, those in the animal husbandry, will be supported to increase yields from what they do, and then, if possible, expand production. And in addition, also more people are mobilized, particularly younger persons, to get interested and attracted into the agricultural space. A lot of technology companies, a lot of financial technology companies are now in the agricultural space. Policy has been consistent and steady. The Central Bank of Nigeria has led the financing of agriculture, to the extent that today no group who are interested in getting financing for agricultural activity in Nigeria can claim that they do not find support. So financing has been fixed. Agriculture, agronomic practices has improved tremendously. Markets have improved. Uptakes are available for most of commodities, and equally the reintroduction of National Agricultural Land Development Authority is helping solve the land challenge, particularly that faced by younger ones who are interested in agricultural activity but are otherwise constrained by land and governmental support. So the cumulative effect of all this have made us a more prosperous and more food secure nation than we hitherto were. That is not to say we don't have more work to do. Thank you.
So it would mean, from what you've said, it's relative when you talk about food security. We're better than we were before. It's still work in progress.
Yeah.
Right. We'll return to you. But let's go over to the Executive Secretary of Nalda. From your perspective, what's the level of food security?
Thank you, Cyril. Like the governor said, food security is work in progress. We are not there yet. but we're on the right track. And I am very much optimistic that with Mr. President's decision and firm policies in place, Nigeria will achieve food security. Since the right policies are in place and implementation is what we are carrying out by the direct supervision of Mr. President and the likes of the governor of Kebab State, the involvement of Central Bank and other stakeholders, I am very sure that Nigeria, under the watch of Mr. President, will achieve food security.
We should be talking at this point to the man who leads the farmers, who should know what it is like to produce the food. And so, Architect Kabir Ibrahim, let's hear you about the level of food security.
It's a work in progress, as the governor and the executive secretary alluded. There are many challenges to this. The policy we have been talking about is expired, agriculture promotion policy. It should have been reinvigorated, or a new one would have been put in place from 2019. We are still working on that. There has been the Council on Agriculture on sometime 2 months ago or so. There is a communique, and we hope that it will be taken forward. The initiative to resuscitate Nalda is a very timely one. The intervention of the CBN is very, very good, is impacting on the food system. But a lot of insecurity is bedeviling the farmers. The farmers are not able to go to their farms in many places. Therefore, there is a very serious threat to food security. But I believe that with the enthusiasm of the current administration, we are likely to achieve food security in a very short while, once we can put to rest the issue of insecurity and all that. The initiatives are very good and commendable. The Nalda initiative is very good. Recently, I watched a program in Daura where they are beginning to really revolutionize the framework of agriculture, and the achievements will be tremendous if it is done properly. We are anxious that these things should take shape very soon, because we have so many problems of skyrocketing prices of food now. The thing that we must do is to optimize our production so that we will be able to even play in AFTA, in the continental free trade area, so that we recognize the fact that Nigeria is not just called a giant for nothing. We should be able to use our irrigable and cultivable land and the mass population that we have to be able to do that. Thank God the youth are now coming into agriculture in earnest. People are not looking at agriculture as a chore that must be done for subsistence. We must do it as a business. And all the farmers are working assiduously to make Nigeria food sufficient. But the bedeviling threat is insecurity. And I'm sure government will put more action. We will be able to walk the talk in ensuring that agricultural space is free and people will be able to go to their farms and produce optimally. We need also to mechanize to be able to really optimize production. There is good science now. We're embracing biotechnology and all that. So many things are happening. In fact, agriculture is in the front burner of the Nigerian system today. So, and I believe that with a lot of effort and a few rearrangements and reorientation, institutions will work together, and then we will get to where we want to get to. I like the mantra of the president that we should be able to eat what we produce and produce what we eat. In the first instance, if we have good food and enough food, then we'll be able to think outside the box. We should be able to go to the moon. That is why the United States is there. That is why you have all these innovations, improvisations, and all that. If where you have no food, you have no food security, people are not doing their best because they cannot think outside the box. They are more concerned with feeding themselves. I'd like to stop here, but like Oliver Twist, the farmers are asking for more. There is the talk of finance. The finance is not reaching every farmer. The CBN is doing its best. but they can do a lot more. The governor of Kebbi State, my good friend and brother, knows very well that we have been working assiduously to make the country better. So I think
in the course of this program, you get the opportunity to talk about those extras that you still need. But then let's go over to Engineer Clementon's there. And the best of intentions and the best of plans, to a large extent, everything will depend on Mother Nature, all right? And so we ask you as DG of Hydrological Services, what role and how has Mother Nature, by way of climate and other vagaries of the weather, contributed to either the shortfall or the improvement of the food situation in the country?
Thank you, Cyril. I've listened to the three speakers before me. So many laudable projects, programs have been enunciated. And I didn't hear one particular issue, for which I'm here anyway. What is nature saying? Is nature going to, or is there any provision being made by the policy makers or the actors at different levels to listen to nature and see whether these laudable projects, programs, input that have been made here and there to ensure food security, whether this is okay? Now, just like you may be thinking, or what I'm thinking also, what is nature saying? And that way it comes to the issue of flood or flooding incidents in Nigeria. You may make so much laudable projects, but if you do not make adequate provision to tackle the negative impacts of flood, most of these activities will somewhat crash. In fact, there are two, like the chairman of Farmers Association has mentioned, talked about insecurity, affecting or hampering every other plan with regards to food security. The other leg of threats is the issue of flood. Your Excellency, we were here together, I think some years, about last year or so. Kebbi State, which is the epicenter of rice farming in Nigeria, the biggest state that produces rice in Nigeria and other crops, was hit. Maybe the governor himself will mention the amount of hectares of rice farm that were inundated and the attendant consequences. So what am I saying? The issue of flood, if care is not taken, might rubbish some of the things that have been put on ground to ensure that there will be adequate food security for the nation. And so far, we are moving gradually into the real flooding season in Nigeria, but we have already received a lot of casualties so far. Most of the states in Nigeria have already been affected negatively.
All right. Thank you so much. And we'll come back to Mr. Governor and say, well, yes, work in progress. And you say the country is better today in terms of food security. But there are challenges. The president of AFAN would want more inputs. The DG of NISA has spoken about what nature can do. And it is true, isn't it, that there's food scarcity to some extent in the country today, isn't there, Mr. Governor? Because if you look across the country, prices have gone up, and citizens would say readily that it's tougher to afford food than sometime in the past.
Well, let me start with the last one about food scarcity. There's different from higher prices, which sometimes can be induced by other factors, not scarcity. Right. There has been a rise in global food prices generally. Prices of commodities across the globe have increased significantly, and Nigeria is not immune. Exchange rate has affected some of the key inputs that go into agricultural production. Today, the fertilizer production cost is closer to 7,000. It used to be less than 5,000 naira 3 years ago. So there is a transmission of that increase in price of input fertilizer into water pumps that are very key to dry season. Their prices have increased. Chemicals, other prices that are linked to foreign exchange have all increased, and understandably prices have been affected. But in terms of availability of crops for those who process or primary producers, in general, there has been sufficiency. Of course, we had challenges of drought in some southwest states in 2020 and flooding in some states, about 30 states. But the net production has increased because of increased reliance on dry season farming and the support, because Mr. President approved over 30 billion naira to support those who have been affected by flooding. And interestingly enough, he also approved that henceforth, even as part of the package of support, those people will receive insurance.
So many factors you speak about, but for example, not too long ago, many households could not afford onions.
Well, onion is a seasonal crop, and then there's the unfortunate situation where it was caught up in logistic issues. Traders who felt they have lost their members or they have lost their vehicles in moving onions from one part of the country decide to go on embargo. At the same time, when some households could not afford onions, onion is rotting somewhere, particularly. So this mismatch, and because we are in an evolving space, some companies are providing solutions, storage solutions, because prices of onion, Kebab is a major producer, and sometimes it fluctuates by 1,000% just because of seasonality and the challenge of storing onion in its fresh form for a period of time. We had, I'm not saying that we don't have problems at all. We had problems with maize because the poultry sector relies on maize. But these challenges, either higher prices or increased demand, should stimulate people to go into production more. And they are going into production and they are being rewarded by going into production. And that is the essence of a good policy, to reward those who are putting effort, to create opportunities so that more can join, and those who are in the sector can also make more out of being in the sector. And government policy, a good government policy, is to support that kind of framework, and that's what the government has been doing, and we are happy that it's catching on.
All right, but then one of the other issues mentioned by both the president of AFAN and the DG of Nalda, border on security. How bad has this affected agricultural activities generally, and how bad has it, been for ensuring food security?
Insecurity is a big issue in anything, and it has been a global phenomenon. We have seen countries across different continents who historically have faced insecurity. We have had neighboring countries who had insecurity longer than us. We also have our challenge, which maybe in the last 15 years has been around and is affecting. But the remarkable achievement of the last 18 months even with the COVID complication, in which most of Northeast populations are leaving IDP camps back to their villages and towns, and they are being supported to go back into production. In the Northwest, even with the unfortunate banditry activity, hardly will you find a local government in which there has been no planting. I remember just 2 days after the last Salah, which is in the last 1 month, I drove from Birnin Kebbi, the state capital, to Zamfara and then to Katsina. And what is noticeable and apparent is that all on both sides of the road are planted crops. So yes, the insecurity is a challenge, but the resilience of the Nigerian people is such that we will not be intimidated, because it's a chicken and egg situation. If you stop production because of insecurity, then a greater disaster happens. And the security agencies have been doing a great job, and communities have been mobilizing to support each other so that they can, even with the challenge, do more than they have been doing.
Well, Principal Ikone Nalda, Executive Secretary, let's look at the integrated farming in Daura, which was launched recently. Is that a new mandate? Take us through that.
It's not a new mandate, Cyril, but based on the act that established Nanda, going by the name National Agricultural Land Development Authority. The integrated farm estate falls into that purview. Land development is to take it away from being forests and then putting infrastructures in place in order to attract the young Nigerians into agric space. Mr. President gave the directives that we should create enabling environment for young Nigerians to go into agriculture. So based on that, we came up with the Nanda Integrated Farm Estate. In the farm estate, we'll have different farming activities, ranging from crop farming to animal husbandry, down to processing and packaging. That alone is like a community where, or like one-stop shop for agriculture. We have a training center for capacity building, where the farmers or the young farmers undergo trainings in the areas of how to be involved in fishery or fish processing, or how to be involved in poultry or chicken processing, and also how to be involved in crop farming. The integrated farm estate, like I said before, is like a one-stop shop where nothing is a waste, where one byproduct of the other is a source of manure to the other one. Like the waste from the water from the fish pond is being used to irrigate the farm and as a source of manure also to the crops. And the poultry droppings will also be used in our farms, and also a source of income for the young farmers, because the poultry droppings, those that are farmers will need it in their various farms, not necessarily those in the integrated farm. So it's going to be sold, and when they are sold, farmers make money from there. So the idea of integrated farm is to bring everybody together and have the entire chain, and then a kind of competition where you will be looking at the other person and at the same time watching what you are doing, and you are encouraged to be in the farm. So in the farm we have clinic, so that the farmers can be taken care of. We also have school where their children can be taught while they are in the farm. We also have residential area, so it makes it easier for them to wake up and go to their farm and finish with the business of the day and retire back home. So it's a project that is taking in more than 1,500 young farmers into agribusiness. And we are very optimistic that with the Mr. President's desire to say that this is replicated across the country, it will inject commitment, and it will also attract young Nigerians into agriculture. It will create job opportunity and then bring us closer to achieving food security. Now, one good thing about integrated farm estate is the organic nature of the farm, because from the droppings from the droppings that we get from the poultry and the rabbit urine and the rabbit droppings, they are all organic fertilizer, and then we use them within the farm. So it's not just that we are producing what we eat, but rather we are producing quality food. Now, the packaging aspect of it is one good thing that integrated farm estate is introducing. Farmers has always counted their loss as a result of lack of storage and lack of buyers, off-takers, having their produce being off-taken immediately. So as such, they lose a lot. But with integrated farm estate, where we have storage system, that has been taken care of, that every farmer within the farm or within the integrated farm estate will be sure that his produce will be off-taken by Nanda, and because Nanda has a very good storage facility in that environment. A typical example is the pepper farmers. We have a drying section there where all the pepper farmers within the integrated farm estate will bring their pepper for drying and proper packaging before it goes into the market.
Okay, Prince Ikone, two quick issues will come up here as you paint the the picture of what the integrated farm estate would be like. First would be, what timelines are we looking at in replicating this initiative across the country? You said that, and land is a big issue in agriculture. Have we taken care of the issues of land?
The first question is, how soon, how quickly can that come? As we speak, in Borno State, the integrated farm estate is 90%, 75% completed. And with Mr. President's directives and central bank's involvement, we can achieve it simultaneously in the states that have made land available. Having access to land, from our experience and with what we have done in Daura and going on in some states, it will be much, much easier, knowing fully well that state governments are keen into the project. Like in Ogun State, the governor of Ogun State have donated 100 hectares of land, which we have cleared, and then we're about to lay the foundation for the integrated farm estate. And we are reaching out to other states, like in Kogi State. The governor of Kogi State have made available, just today they submitted the drawing, the perimeter survey of 400 hectares for Kogi State integrated farm estate. Also, in Abia State, the governor of Abia State has made available the former Ogbe Golden Chicken farm, which is 400 hectares. So having access to land for integrated farm estate, I don't see it as a problem, especially in the north, since they are sure of what the land is going to be used for and is going to be developed for the immediate community. So, and we are very hopeful that other states will be quick.
That it might not be the same in other states.
Hopeful that will take place very soon.
Okay, President Alfan, let's talk about this initiative and what you think about it and what the farmers think about it.
What Nalda is doing is quite commendable, but there are many gray areas. Who is the owner of the land, of the development, of the farm estate? How do you distribute wealth among the people? Why is Nalda not opening new places? Because we have a lot of cultivable land that is not in use. Why don't we go to places that are not being used and open them up and set up all these things? Why are we doing all these things in one place? How can you have poultry, you have animal husbandry, you have this all within 100 hectares? You know, there are many, many issues. I am a livestock farmer essentially. I've had problems in the last 20 years when I had ostriches, I had chicken, I had large ruminants in one place. There are some diseases that do not bring the ostrich down, for instance, like Newcastle disease. If you have ostriches in the same location with chicken, the chicken will always have Newcastle disease. And when you have these large ruminants like cattle in the same place, they will have salmonella. So you must segregate these things, and then you must define ownership, and then you must involve a lot more farmers. Because if you go to Daura and you are talking about only 1,500 youths, what are you talking about? There will be so many people because that thing is in Katsina State. And the population of Katsina State is now 7 million, and 75% are youth. And you have that outfit there. If you replicate that in Borno and all that, you know, you are not really reaching out to the right number of people. These are areas where I think Nalda should just look at. I'm giving them constructive criticism, and I believe that they are listening. They can look at all these things, because government itself cannot own these farms. The development is really private sector, because the government has no business owning the farms. The people have to own the farms. You develop them, give them the optimum push, and then the people own them. That is the way to go. That is how it is done globally. There should be synergy between Nalda, the Ministry of Agriculture, and all the Farmers Association, the CBN, and everybody. We must work together. We cannot do these things in isolation. When this was launched by the president in Daura, I come from Katsina State. I didn't know about it. We were not invited. I believe the farmers should be invited. I was just telling the executive secretary that he should have invited us. He is here with me. He knows that he should have invited the farmers, because we can make inputs there. And I believe that as a young man, he will succeed if he listens to us. It's very, very important. And he must have synergy, the right kind of synergy with the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and with the governors. Because the agriculture actually takes place in the states. You must be able to have a very good relationship with the governors of all the states of this country, because the policies will go down to where action will be taken. I think it's not only Nalda, even the Federal Ministry of Agriculture has to know that agriculture really takes place in the states. The policies can be made here, and when you have communiques in the, let's say, in the ritual Council on Agriculture, every state will come in, and there will be communique that everybody will buy into. And when it goes to the states, even if they are different if they are governed by a different party from the party at the center, everybody would simply key in, because their contributions are recorded and they are part of the policy. And then you must have a policy that will not change, that will be there sustainably. You cannot just, you know what the president is doing now is quite commendable, and is putting agriculture in the front burner in Nigeria. But what will happen after he leaves? We must be able to do these things sustainably. What Nalda is doing is very, very expensive. I heard, I don't know the details, but I heard that they are going to have about 400,000 chickens, poultry. Every 200 matured chicken eat 1 bag of feed. When you have 400,000 in one place, if they are producing at 70%, if they are layers, you will have a large quantity of eggs. People have very low purchasing power. Where will they sell the eggs? We have gluts perennial gluts in the north. I was the president of Poultry Association in Nigeria for 5 years, and I know the business. So many of these things have to be looked at, and you need to talk to people with a lot of experience in this business to be able to advise you.
Often. Key issues you've raised here, and in the next coming minutes, we would be asking the Executive Secretary of Nalda and Mr. Governor here to comment on those key issues that you have raised. But for now, let's look at this report coming in from Ebonyi.
Before the present administration, the food value chain program was given less attention, prompting the need to awaken the consciousness of the long-term goal of the National Agricultural Land Development Authority, Nalda, in training 36,000 youths as soil doctors across the federation. With these in focus, Ebonyi State Government and IFAD, with adequate knowledge of the components of the soil, carried out demonstration of farms across the 13 council areas of the state, leading to increase in productivity.
All the seeds that are going to our farmers must pass through this laboratory. They must be certified in terms of the germination and the healthiness of the seed.
You can use sand to test the seed, but the sand will usually be sterilized using the soil sterilizer to get it free from weed seed and other soil pathogens.
More so, the Ebonyi State Government, in collaboration with other stakeholders through the Land Development Board, mapped out thousands of hectares of land, including the provision of 40 tractors and 13 bulldozers to enhance mechanized farming. The Commissioner for Agriculture, Ebonyi State, Moses Nomi, acknowledged that through the training of youths in all the wards of the state, as well as the proper evaluation of the soil testing project, it is clear that Ebonyi State is better repositioned to help the federal government tackle food insufficiency.
Nanda is here. At least they're working in 3 places now in Ebonyi State.
For the farmers, lack of access to all the required machines for farm activities has hindered massive food production, which is why they are appealing that mechanized farming should be completely and effectively applied in the food value chain so as to harness the full potentials of training the youths as soil doctors in Nigeria.
And if government will assist us in fertilizer and all those minute that will help us to do work with, we will appreciate them. We need all these modern machines to improve the qualities of our rice, from parboiling to milling to destoning.
In the interim, apart from financially supporting the youths through cooperative groups, the farmers are also benefiting from various government schemes in the food value chain, a feat believed to further boost farm yield, not only in Ebonyi State, but the entire country.
All right, looking at the situation in Ebonyi State, and just before we go to those issues the AFAN president raised, well, let's come to Engineer Clementi's. Interestingly, he also raised questions about listening to nature. I would say, as an agency, how have you been involved? What's the input to all these organs that are meant to drive the agriculture and food security? And how has the response been and the impact?
Thank you, Cyril. Earlier in the year, precisely in the month of May, my minister, the Honorable Minister of Water Resources, made a public presentation as to the flooding seasons or situation in the country for the year 2021. And in the report, no less than 121 local government areas in Nigeria, LGAs in Nigeria, will, cutting across 27 states at the FCT, will be having severe flooding in the course of the year. It's already commenced. Then additional 302 LGS across the whole country, the prediction says will experience another level of flooding, but not like the first 121. And this report indicated in names of local government areas in Nigeria. Our own work as an agency is primarily advisory. We inform you, we see ahead of time, like prophets do, and we notify the people. Now, the Honorable Minister notified all the governors in Nigeria, each of the governors listing the names of the local government areas in their states that they should watch out for in the course of the year. His Excellency is here, the governor of Kebbi State. Not that he's in the studio with me. I would say he is the only governor among others. Maybe he may speak, he's the chairman of a progressive governors forum. The only governor that keeps asking questions. Even as before we entered the studio, there was a question he posed to me. I said, when we finish, we'll look at it. And he personally sent one of his aides, even two commissioners that came in the course of the year, earlier in the year, for some information. And after we did the presentation in May, he was in Abuja, he called, and later sent somebody, his staff, that came to pick some copies, and they noted those local government areas in Kebbi State. Now you are asking about the response. To us as an agency, it is quite worrisome that year in, year out, we're having the same experience, that we make a prediction about weather, the flooding, the magnitude, and make it available to the states. Like we mentioned, that the agriculture is in the states, the agricultural practices. We expect that the state governments should key into that prediction and begin to take steps, cascading the information down to the local government areas and the communities as to the threat caused by flooding in the course of the year. No, it worries us that not much action is being seen at the states, except once the disaster occurs. Flood is a hazard, flood. But how it is managed or the impact it makes translates to disaster or no disaster. So we are not quite impressed that we are not getting adequate positive response to our prediction to avert. Like I can go on and to give instances where the chief executive of the states, the governors, rushing to the scenes of the incidents after it has occurred. We expect that by the month of February every year, because after each cycle of rains with the flooding, you have to do maintenance. That maybe the month of February of every year or March, let there be activities seen in the field, the seating of the canal, clearing the drainages, doing all kinds of removing structure within the flood plains and so on and so forth. Not when the danger is already sitting with us. I read one of the mayors, one governor in the southwest, mapping out what he's going to do now. When the Oguoshi River Basin in Abuja has given a release of how they're going to raise water from Oyan Dam, that's in Abuja North, which will inundate Lagos and Ogun State. So it is not nice. You're supposed to have done it February, March, or even April, before the flooding sets in.
It's a point to take up from.
Well, my friend, Engineer Enzo, who, whenever I see his missed call, I pray for answering because we speak quite often. And what he said definitely is that this is a collaborative endeavor. But desilting may sound quite easy, but desilting in some instances can be quite capital intensive. And the President Muhammadu Buhari, as part of the National Food Security Challenge, has directed the ministers of water resources, transportation and environment to come up with a plan for a national drainage architecture. Because yes, we may have flooding, and flooding might be defined as a hazard, but we like the water also. If we can manage the water and store it, it can support production outside the rainy season. But this is a big capital undertaking, but the nation, I think, is a necessary investment, and Mr. President has directed that initial studies be put in place. But in the interim, what engineers said is correct, that we have been seeing success of that. That is why less human lives have been lost to flooding, because most states or most communities that are prone to flooding have heeded to the warning to move away and live in higher grounds so that they are not exposed. But still we experience largely significant crop damage and animal loss of animal life. And I believe the response is increasing. Sometimes, particularly for us, Kebab, an engineer might have said that the challenge is beyond us. He will call me that the level of River Niger is 9 feet high. And I know what that meant, because that means River Niger coming into Kebab from Niger Republic is going to come in all its fury. And even the Kanji Dam cannot contain the water. And so this is, even beyond Nigeria, it's a West African challenge. But like I said, we have seen a lot of we have received a lot of support. I just mentioned earlier how 30 billion has been approved by Mr. President to support over 300,000 farmers and those in the livestock sector who have lost crops or animal husbandry in the last flooding season.
But if Governor Atiku Bagudu gets a good report of responding promptly to predictions and putting in place preventive measures, wouldn't it be good and nice to have others do the same? Now, there are platforms on there, particularly you, Chairman of the Progressives Governors. So there are platforms to put the message across.
The message is not, I'm sure the message is sent across broadly, but there is resistance. In some communities, we must remember that flooding is welcomed. Flooding is not necessarily a negative thing to most farmers. They even anticipate it, because once the water begins to recede, then they are able to plant with certainty. What happens is, what causes damage is when we are aggressive and we plant in the floodplain as close to the river path as possible. And because communities, there sometimes the sanctity of the information or belief in science is not as it's not shared equally.
Right.
They feel, well, nature, the scientists have said this, but maybe perchance it will not come true.
Well, there were other issues that were raised, very serious issues, and that's talking about the input of the farmers themselves into initiatives like the integrated farming estates. And so for the Executive Secretary of Nalda, let's come to you on that. You heard the President of the Farmers Association and the things he said. How do you respond to that?
The concern of the President of the Farmers were well taken in during the conception of Nanda Integrated Farm Estate. First of all, opening up new farm land. Where we have this integrated farm estate was like a forgotten place. So it's a new place, and we opened it up. There was no access road in the first place, so we opened it up completely, and then today it's now farm estate. And then the ownership of the farm belongs to the farmers who are from that community. Government have no business in running the farm estate, so that is why in the design of the farm estate, we have a management team put in place. For that of Daura is going to be managed by Jais Bank with a team of professionals which Jais Bank will engage to manage the farm estate. And in managing it is to take the farmers through and to supervise and guide them on what to do. So the farm estate is designed for the farmers, new intakes, because we have a lot of youths that are not doing anything. So if you focus on the existing farmers, then that means we are not solving the problem of insecurity in the country. So opening up farm estates and bringing in new farmers and young farmers into the agri space is a big plus, and the credit must go to Mr. President for such directives and seeing it come true. Again, producing in excess. If we produce a lot of eggs, how are we going to consuming power and all that? Let us first of all produce in excess. Let us first of all have it in excess. Definitely what it means is that the price will drop, and then we'll begin to export to earn foreign income. So I think all the concern of the president is taken care of before rolling out the program. Again, what Nalda stands for is those forests, those land that has been abandoned and are being used as kidnappers' den, to turn it into productive environment. And that is what we are doing, and that is what we are asking stakeholders, community leaders, traditional rulers, and most importantly, the chief security officers of every state, which are the governors. I must commend the governor of Kebbi State in every honesty. I said it in Katsina that day. His support has been so wonderful. And I challenge every other governor in Nigeria to do as he has been doing, because his advice to Nanda has been one of the driving force. And if we get such support from all the stakeholders, it's not for Nanda now, it's for the country. The president has done what he's supposed to do as a farmer himself, initiating these things and giving us all the financial support to make sure that we achieve it. Now it's for the people to key into it and see it as a way of life. Agriculture or farming is no longer meant or something meant for people that did not go to school. It's now a way of life and an avenue to earn money and to live a good life. And creating or developing an integrated farm estate is one of the best ways. Nigeria is not the first country that has an integrated farm estate. And the concern the President of Farmers Association raised about having diseases. That's why we have 100 hectares of land and dispersing, because professionals also, we are on ground to point out how we are going to place the structures, and they were well placed. So your concerns are taken care of, and I know your concerns may be the concerns of farmers, but the responsibility of NADA did not stop in creating new farm estates or bringing in new farmers into agri space. No, we are also supporting farmers. As we speak, we have distributed tractors, using it to support farmers that are in need of tractors at no cost. You know, some states are receiving theirs, some already have received long before now, and the delay was as a result of procurement processes. And going forward, by during the dry season farming, a lot of farmers will enjoy these facilities, having taken care of the procurement processes now. And as we procure, we send to the states, and the state coordinators will reach out to farmers for them to come have access to these tractors in order to support them. So when that is done
here, I will return and look at more issues and take in a couple of reports as well. But for now, we'll take a short break. Stay with us on NTA Tuesday Live. We'll be back shortly.
Youths are about the greatest assets the country has at the moment. It is therefore not surprising that the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari is strategically responding to the yearnings of the youth through multiple projects and programs. Youth entrepreneurship support years by Bank of Industry, the Youth Investment Fund by the CBN, and several other conditional cash transfer programs. Recruitment of 774,000 social workers, majority of whom are youths, and so many other projects that are beneficial to youths directly or indirectly. If the administration can do all this, definitely with a degree of patience and time, it can achieve more. Nigerian youths must come together to say no to terrorism, no to vandalism, and no to all disruptive tendencies. Hashtag Youth for Greater Nigeria. Pacifying the youths, unifying the nation.
Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Well, Katsina State, specifically Daura, was where the launch of the integrated farming estate took place. This next report we're bringing you is from Katsina State.
The ongoing agricultural training and empowerment of 36,000 youth farmers across the country as soil doctors and agricultural management is to reposition Nigeria to achieving food sufficiency. With this development, a section of youth in Katsina commended the federal government for the initiative, stressing that the policy will not only boost agricultural activities but create job opportunities.
This Nalda activities, since it is solely based on agriculture. Agriculture can be described as one of the backbone of every nation or of every society.
The consumers will have enough and available produce, crop products that they can sustain their life.
An agricultural expert, Professor Ibrahim Yusuf Danladan, says the revitalization of National Agricultural Lands Development Authority would go a long way in improving agricultural value chain in the country.
There will be increased agricultural production, both in quantity and probably quality. Again, it is likely that as a result of the increase in the acreage of agricultural production, more unemployed youth will gain employment.
It is against this background, Governor Aminu Bello Masari stressed the readiness of his administration in achieving the set objectives to enhance mechanized farming and improve self-reliance among the youth. Governor Aminu Bello Masari, who was speaking during the recently inaugurated Integrated Farming Institute by President Muhammadu Buhari in Ujedu village of Dora local government area of Katsina State, said the federal government agricultural policy will reposition Nigeria to attain food security.
It is clear, all of us in this country, that rain-fed agriculture alone cannot feed Nigeria and cannot sustain our economy.
A visit to the institute in Dora reveals that students are still undergoing training on various chosen agricultural fields.
Okay, we've heard the report from Katsina. Let's go over to Abuja and take this other report coming in, and then we'll return to the studio and look at the issues raised.
As vast arable land for agricultural practices with roadmap for food security and commercial agriculture through various schemes such as the Anchor Borrower, Dry Season Farming, cassava projects, youth engagement in agriculture, and small-scale farmers support schemes. Beneficiaries, especially young entrepreneurs, say the intervention has not only demonstrated government commitment to increasing food production, but also creating employment opportunities.
Grateful that this project came up in Aquaculture to see
not just people looking for a white-collar job, but now putting their hands into farming and mostly into issues that bring out money from water. It will bring out a lot of employment. Apart from skill acquisition, employment will come out and also put protein on the table of the populace and also generate income, both for the community, for the state, the nation.
There is a lot of gain. There is a lot of, I'm making money.
Ogun State Commissioner for Agriculture, Dr. Adeola Odedino, says the state has benefited immensely from various intervention programs in the agriculture sector by the federal government in linking the farmer to credit, land, inputs, technology for processing, and assured market scope.
Our state, we are hosting the largest concentration of agro-industry in Nigeria. These industries are going to be needing raw materials. They are going to be needing skilled personnel. And so this fits well into the agricultural agenda of Ogun State. It's a welcome development, and we are happy with federal government. We are very proud of as Ogun State.
For now, over 70,000 youths are currently engaged in crop and livestock production, while hectares of land have also been allocated to farmers with unfettered access to mechanized farming equipment to boost food production, industrialization, and employment.
Well, at the end of the day, two key issues will form the crux of the matter: bringing the prices of food down and ensuring food sufficiency and security. So let's look at those issues. Governor Atiku Bagudu, how do we bring down the prices of food?
Well, first, we have to increase more production and to support those who are producing to produce more from their farmlands, because agronomic practices can make all the difference. Sometimes a farmer can be realizing less than 1 ton in a farmland where it is possible to get 5 tons, 6 tons, 7 tons. But he needs to be supported with financing, with inputs, adequacy of inputs, with proper seedlings. And like I said earlier, these things are all coming together. Now in most places across Nigeria, farmers know the difference and the value of using proper seedlings and sufficiency of inputs. Particularly the Presidential Fertilizer Initiative had helped in the availability and adequacy of fertilizer, even though the model has been complicated by exchange rate movement, but overall it has been a success. And for Mr. President Muhammadu Buhari, his first thought is that the farmer should be wealthy. So if you want stop buying food, it's very easy. Join the farming club or support somebody to do it. Now young people are crowdfunding and investing in agriculture. And when you do that, you can lower your food, the amount of income, of your income you spend in agriculture. And we are seeing increasing buying from neighboring countries, which is not a bad thing in itself. It means we should be producing more and more. So prices can be both an incentive to those who are putting effort, and can be sometimes will always appear to the consumer that I want lower. But we should also think about those who are putting effort, the millions of our countrymen and women who are putting their effort in agriculture. They should be supported to become wealthier and to create more market, which is happening, while the consumers are not also disadvantaged. But the primary focus should be on rewarding those who are putting effort to produce.
There are a couple of things here that will go with this. One, a part of it that may be seen as political, and that's talking about policies, sustainability of those policies, and getting the input of key stakeholders, like has been demonstrated here tonight. Farmers are thinking they could have made a little more difference if they had been taken into confidence in launching one of those projects. And there was also a question about how sustainable some of these policies are.
I had my friend, the president of the All Farmers Association of Nigeria, and what he said, I think, is restricted to Nalda, because I have met him in many governmental forums, and this administration has involved farmers at all levels. We have some of the most organized farmer associations, including the one he respectably and brilliantly is leading. They have been making inputs, not necessarily into Nalda, but into policies of government. And Mr. President himself has provided the opportunity to interact with farmer associations. I have been in a number of forums where Mr. President is personally in attendance, and other stakeholders. I was in a forum at the Bila where Mr. President hosted those market women associations in Lagos, who are also part of the agricultural value chain. So this is there has been a lot of evolution of involvement of stakeholders, but I don't know how it happened that the All Farmers Association were not sufficiently involved in the Nalda. But even though the executive secretary has also mentioned that, but this administration, I believe, in all fairness, have involved farmers. And as to sustainability, that involvement of millions of farmers, millions of livestock producers, millions of fishing community participants, we believe is laying the ground for sustainability, because Nigerians now believe more in Nigerian produce. Many companies have come up to process Nigerian crops, and I believe that this has created the traction for us to defend the policy to continue. It has been proven that Nigerian crops, Nigerian produce are comparable to the best around the world. So many people are getting rich in the process. So I believe the platform has been set. The closure of the borders, which President Muhammadu Buhari authorized the Nigerian Custom Service to do, is further evidence of how far the president can go to ensure that we make these policies work and we tell the world that we mean business. It is not out of conflict with neighbors or disrespect or dislike for them. But in fact, interestingly enough, the neighbors have now reciprocated that they have appreciated what Nigeria is doing. And Benin Republic have sent to a rice festival in Kebab 5 ministers to come and partner with Nigeria. Again, those set of ministers had also come to meet with the Chief of Staff to Mr. President to see how we can collaborate so that Benin will not even be importing rice. The same thing with Nigerian Republic. They are very, very appreciative of what has been done.
Right, the phones are open, and we have our first caller tonight, Ada, calling in from Jos. Ada, go ahead. All right. Just keep the calls coming through. The lines are already open. Let's return to the Afan president. Earlier on, you described Afan as Oliver Twist asking for more, and you mentioned farmers wanting more inputs. Let's talk about that.
Our population is very, very high. We are close to like 40 million. And all the interventions are targeting small numbers. And the majority of the farmers do not even know that it is happening. That is why we continuously ask for more. But certainly we will have, we will have failed if we do not praise this administration. It has brought agriculture to the front burner, and as the governor of Kebbi State said, there are many fora in which we are involved, and he knows very well that wherever he calls us or anybody involves us, we make our contributions that help to achieve good results. And in so many ways, this can be done. There are some functionaries in government who feel that farmers should not be involved, and he knows very well where I'm coming from, because we have attended meetings in which he himself noticed certain gaps in population, in communication and even action. And oftentimes, some of these things are misplaced. It is very clear that there are some inputs that the farmers can get at very affordable prices that are not getting to a very big or good spectrum of the farmers. Sometimes, some people just limit it to the people they know. And, in agriculture, we really don't have borders, because we don't care if you're a pagan, a Muslim, a Christian, where you are from the north or the south or wherever. Once you produce food, everybody will eat it. Therefore, this should be very, very open and transparent. Our major complaints are that we see sometimes some of these things happening in an obtuse manner. If it is open and transparent, we will be able to appreciate it more. The president definitely...
Ask you to pause a while here. Let's see if we can get back Ada, who's calling in from Jos, and then we'll return to you.
Hello?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Hello?
Ada, go ahead. You're on.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go on.
Hello? Okay. Ada from Jos. Please, no matter the things put in place to reduce the agricultural sector, I think the greatest problem is insecurity. We have to address this issue of insecurity to avoid further food security. A situation where farmers have to pay back when they are allowed to access their farm, or even not allowed to go there again, is unacceptable. A hungry man has no respect for law, authority, and humanity. That's why we're having all these kind of crises all over the place. Another thing is flooding. Flooding. We have to take care of flooding. That is, make sure we have all year-round farming by laying more emphasis on irrigation farming, providing ceilings that are flood resistant, and the rest of them. Incentives, there should be adequate incentives for farmers. We will avoid giving money to these loans or whatever, supplements to the political farmers. They are political farmers and they are real farmers. I think we get it right sometime someday. But now, for now, we are not feeling the impact. All we say, we are having so much food, this and that, I can't understand it, because with the soaring price of goods and services, something that nobody can imagine on a Monday morning. God bless you. That's my take this one. Let's not give up on Nigeria.
All right. Thank you very much. Ada, from just three key issues: insecurity, flooding, and the question of incentives. Perhaps the president of AFAN, I might even put this to you and say, what's your take on how to stem the insecurity that has bedeviled not just one part of the country, all around, and your members are, are victims most of the times. You had the lady, she said, farmers pay fines in order to go to their farms. Sometimes they don't even get to go to those farms. What has AFAN put together to advise on how to stem this?
Well, as AFAN, we are involved in all the security programs of this government. There are some committees where we are members. We make our contributions, and I've written extensively on how to do these things. Sometimes there are problems because the climate change enthusiasts also have a number of exceptions to some of the things that we proposed. And then the issue of security should also be looked upon as everybody's problem. It's not only government, everybody should be involved in it, because it affects everybody in the same way. So for anybody to think that it is government and the security institutions that we have that should bring about security, I think it's a very far cry from reality. So the whole matter should be looked at as everybody's problem. We should be our brothers and sisters keepers in Nigeria to be able to really have this security. And then again also we must think in terms of curbing drug abuse and all that, because most of the youngsters are doing these things when they are on drugs. A number of issues that have happened have shocked us, because even children of some people are part of the kidnappers of some family members in some areas. And then you can see that there is a lot of information before attacks are even made. So there are informants from among us who do that. So a lot of things have to be done, and the mindset of the typical Nigerian has to change from just looking at the problem as somebody else's, rather than they themselves looking at it as their own problem. So everybody needs to take active part in what is happening today. The situation, as somebody alluded, I think is the governor of Kebbi State. He even put it at about 15 years. So it's not this administration. It began even before this administration, but it has been building up for a very long time, for nearly 50 years. It's not something that has happened today. It is only rearing its head now because there are so many factors that that help it. You see, I'm sorry to say that from 1999 to date, the problem has escalated. Politics also has played a very decisive role in it, because I remember that, you know, in the beginning we used some of these youth as our footmen, and some of them are even given drugs deliberately to be able to snatch boxes and all that. If you remember what happened, you know.
Phones now. And Umar Farouk is calling in from Kebbi. Let's hear you.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Just go ahead.
Yes, thank you for giving me the opportunity to call. Hello, can you hear me? Yes, my question goes to the
very first thing
Nanda.
if you're used to this program, is to turn down the volume. If you turn down the volume of your TV set, we'll hear you.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
All right. It would seem that Umar Farouk, you might have to call back. And let me just say this, and we say it all the time. Once you get through, turn down the volume of your TV set. That's the way to avoid the echo or the hurlback. And you could see how that interfered with what Umar Farouk was about to say. So for others calling in, remember to turn down the volume of your TV. There is another caller on the line from Jalingo. Wilson calling in from Jalingo.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello?
Yes, go right ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go on.
Yes. Okay, my issue here I want to raise is that how do you reconcile the situation is just like we are continuously swinging between financial insecurity and food insecurity. Sometimes it's just like being in a situation of hunger in abundance. You know, we are in problem where we sometimes find ourselves in a problem of food insecurity, and when even when the food is there, there is no financial power to buy it. So what is the government doing to reconcile this so that
even when there is that food, it can be affordable to a common man to get the food, because as it is now, the food is there in the market, but the purchasing power is not there. People are in real trouble. It's just like there's no food at all. So how do we reconcile that? The question is to who it may concern.
All right, thank you for that question. I'm sure the governor here, being a policy maker, would want to take on that.
I think first we have to even look at the structure of our society. Most Nigerians are either farmers, fishing, people in fishing, or in the animal husbandry. And therefore they are producers of food in themselves, so they are taken care of. And most people who are in public service, are in trade, other forms of employment, are also in farming or some animal husbandry or fishing activity. So there are a lot of participants in the agricultural space that do not depend upon buying. But there are those who rely on buying to meet their food needs. And I believe the caller is maybe thinking about that category. And I said it earlier, the hallmark of a good policy is to first and foremost reward those who put in effort. We want our farmers, we want our fishing communities, we want our animal husbandry participants to be richer. And we want, so if you don't want to buy food, take off a piece of farmland and get involved. It's done around the world. And like I said, Nigeria's produce are increasingly finding market around this continent, and so there will be demand pressure. And demand pressure should first and foremost reward those who are participating. Well, like I said, we are not dismissing the interests of those who are consuming, but even when you talk about increase in prices, when you compare our prices to competition around the world, we are doing better. So it's not like Nigerian produce are more expensive. If you buy any fresh produce, rice, millet, maize from anywhere around the world, it can come and land in Nigeria and sell for the same price.
All right. I suppose that addresses your question. I just keep the calls coming through. But let's come to Engineer Nze. We're beginning to see some of the things you talked about play out. Already, the floods are hitting out at some parts. What is the picture that you're looking at? And, Nigerians are also raising concerns about the activities of neighboring countries which are likely, are likely to have an impact on the situation here. The last time you spoke to the media, you said a particular country had not yet released its water. Yes, but there are still concerns and fears.
Okay, you see, Nigeria is located in what we call Niger Basin, a basin. There are 9 countries in this basin, cutting across West and Central Africa. West Africa, you have 7 countries, starting from Guinea. That's Guinea, Conakry, Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, Cote d'Ivoire, Benin Republic. Then on the Central Africa, you have Cameroon, where River Benue comes from, and then Chad. There are major rivers flowing to River Benue. Now, at this point in time, this is let's say, is it 10th to 11th of August? These countries are beginning to experience their season of rainfall. All these countries are connected together by the river Niger system, that river Niger and Benue. It is towards the middle of August, September, that the inflows from all these countries by way of the rivers will be arriving. Nigeria is at the bottom of this basin. Like Yawashan Basin, that point where the wastewater goes out from. That's where Nigeria is in the basin. So whatever happens in all these countries by way of flooding or pollution must come down to Nigeria. It is usually during the month of August, late August and September. Now, yes, the issue of release of water on the River Niger side, we are a little bit safe because we have Kainji and Jeba dams.
Okay.
But on River Benue, if Cameroon should release water from Lagdo Dam in Cameroon, there's nothing to checkmate it or to hold it.
Okay. Well, I'll come back to you, but let's try to get this call from Makudi Eze is calling in. Hello. All right. In effect, some of these things are out of our hands.
Yes. Right? That is why one of the issue of a prediction comes in science. We see it like in 2000, I think 2002, last year or so. I was always updating His Excellency, the governor of Kebbi State, as to the propagation of this flood from Mali, Guinea, Niger, Burkina Faso, coming down to Nigeria, entering to Nigeria in Kebbi State. So, if you prepare the people ahead of time, if you warn them ahead of time, they take some steps to ensure that disaster is minimized. Flooding issues is a global thing. We saw what happened in Europe, in America, and so on and so forth. So Nigeria's own case is not an exception. But prediction, early forecast, information dissemination helps to ameliorate or reduce the negative impact of the flood.
All right. If we take a step away from nature and come back to the things we plan here and go straight to the Executive Secretary of Nalda. Earlier on, you had Architect Kabir Ibrahim talk about the numbers being small in terms of the population. We also asked about the timelines for replicating the Daura experience. While you mentioned a few states up north where work is in progress, we still are yet to know how and when other states are going to be part of this.
The population of Nigeria is an advantage to the country, and being an advantage, what it means is that we will have more people participate in agribusiness, and that's what Mr. President has been advocating, and by creating an enabling environment and these policies that he's standing by them. So, and we're also asking that our population shouldn't be a disadvantage to us, thereby encouraging the youths to go into farming. We have put out a lot of programs from training the soil doctors, engaging them to be trained as soil doctors and extension service providers, to taking part in the dairy farming itself. Then making sure that this program is replicated in every other state is a subject of availability of land. As the states and communities key into the project by making the land available, the President has mandated Central Bank of Nigeria to work with Nanda, and thank God the Vice Chairman of Food Security Council, which is the Governor of Kebbi State, is here with us and was with the President when the directive was given, and he has already been working with Nanda in giving us guidance and directives and suggestions on the way to go. Replicating it in other states won't be a problem, and by the time that the lands are made available and the steps that we are taking now are being seen as the way to go by the communities keen into the project. Keen in means understanding that this project is meant for them. if you are not from the immediate community, you will not participate in farming within the integrated farm estate. And the communities are the ones to select or nominate the beneficiaries within them. So it's something that belongs to them, but the federal government is facilitating it through Nanda since they are not able to clear the land or put the infrastructures in place or train themselves. So Nanda, as an institution under the supervision of Mr. President, is putting all this together for the community to benefit. And by so doing, we will be reducing thuggery, unemployment, and we'll be increasing our productivity. So we are ready to roll out to other states, but the land must be made available by a way of donation from the community through the state.
Let's go over to the Afan president. Two things I want you to talk about quickly. One of them has to do with farmers who benefit from incentives given by financial institutions, by government, the central bank, and you do hear stories of less than an appreciable percentage payback.
Well, it's a very serious problem, and the CBN would tell you more. The first mistake in terms of giving out loans, for instance, is when you don't do due diligence. You see, when people come to Abuja and with their briefcases and pretend that they are farmer leaders and you give support through them, some of them misappropriate it, and also they give their friends who are not necessarily farmers, who do not really do the work they say they are going to do, and therefore will not be able to pay back. Then sometimes unforeseen situations like flooding and poor marketing and business failure also takes place in some of the instances where even genuine farmers are involved. So it's a myriad of reasons that cause lack of repayment of debts. The interest rate is very good at 5% after COVID. I think is manageable, but it can be lower. In other places is much lower than that. It may be ambitious to ask for it, but it is real, because what you get from agriculture, the profit margin is always very slim. If you take any aspect of agriculture, you hardly ever get more than 10%. And if you have to pay back, it will not be in one season. It is a bit not well thought out when you give loan to a farmer who does, for now, they do, or we do rain-fed agriculture. If you think that we will be able to pay debts in one farming season, I think is ambitious. You must be able to allow people some time to be able to really manage what they do and then pay back. That is a very important factor to also consider. And then three, I think that the economists have got a lot of work to do. There is a fundamental difference between production, marketing, storage, and so many pillars that have been highlighted in Kebab to be able to take agriculture to another level and to make countries like Nigeria that are 75–80% agrarian to be able to really manage agriculture and make it the fulcrum on which the economy actually revolves in a sustainable manner. Marketing and purchasing power of individuals, power, transportation, and many other factors have to be taken care of properly. So it's a very serious issue that requires a lot of people who know what to do. The president will give the direction, but the right kind of people have to be put in the places to drive these institutions. And the institutions must work. There must be synergy between them to be able to get the best results. I'm not criticizing the CBN, for instance. If you look at the development finance, the intervention of CBN in agriculture today is mainly coming from development finance. And when you look at the staffers in development finance, not up to 20% of them are really agri experts. Some of them do not really understand what is agricultural lending. So it's very, very important for them to be efficiently managing that scheme for it to work and for the results to be very good so that other people can be reached also. Because when you target maybe 2 million people out of even the figure that is bandied by that has always been bandied by the Federal Ministry of Agriculture, even from the time of the additional, it was like 14.5. So even if you say that factor, that number is still the same of farmers. When you target 2 million of them and you give them these incentives and loans and all that, what is going to happen to the 12.5 million people? Unless the 2 million people are able to really pay back, the thing will not revolve to reach the other people. So it is very, very critical and very, very important for you to really know whom to give the loan so that they pay back and others get, because the government does not have the resources to adequately take care of all these people. And then again, we must mechanize. We must replace manpower or human power with machine power to be able to produce optimally. You see, the population of the farmers will contract if we bring in a lot of mechanization. Other people will get jobs and will get wealth from processing of the produce that we do. I mean, when you have 40 million people going to the farms and tilling the land and all that, it's still not really there. If you take the United States, for instance, the population of the farmers is hardly 2%. In some countries in Europe, especially France and the UK, it's about 3% because of mechanization. And the people do all year round agriculture. You must be able to do it all year round to be able to offset these loans. If you wait for the periods between April and September to produce and then sell and then pay back, and then wait until the time comes again, you will never finish. You will never finish paying. You will never even be able to really appropriately feed yourself. Some of the talk about...
Thank you. But the last, Governor Atiku, the last two comments by the Afghan president, I would like you to come in here. First, to deal with the question of giving out loans without due process, as he says, which sometimes is responsible for those who are not supposed to be beneficiaries, and which is responsible for the very poor rate of payback. And, of course, the question of mechanization.
First, I think on repayment, a lot of improvement has taken place from what used to be 6 years ago. Now, a lot of lending is being done by companies who extend the loans to farmers and uptake from them. The financial institutions have increased their due diligence and their geolocation, where they know that I am lending to a group of farmers who are producing in this location. So the credit process has improved significantly, and loan repayments had understandably increased significantly, and a lot of insurance products are now being sold into the agricultural space that is reducing the risk of lending. And let us remember that this is an evolutionary process. It started very slow, and the total money going into agriculture there is a quantum leap certainly in the last 6 years, but it's still small just like the apparent president say, compared to the scale of need, maybe 1.5 trillion, which is less than $3 billion, we should be talking $50 billion, $60 billion, because we need a lot of investment in irrigation. Maybe most of our farmers, most of our farmlands are still rainy season fed farming. After that, farmers, and those are their assets. So if only we can lend or find money that can provide, as the president has always called for, that can provide irrigation, and that means the farmers will be able to use their lands longer than the year, produce more, and pay their loans. But I'm very, very satisfied with the reports we have been receiving about the improvement in loan repayment. There are some situations in which up to 70 work court actually told me that they recorded 92% loan, which is comparable to the very, very best around the world. What we want, I know Central Bank has been doing a lot. They have just launched the Infrastructure Fund, which what I'm appealing is that irrigation infrastructure should be part of that fund. It's not just roads or power, but irrigation infrastructure is also a necessary component of infrastructure. Secondly, on the issue of mechanization, again, there's a lot of technology that is going into agriculture. A lot of very young, brilliant, dynamic young men and women are going into agriculture, providing services that are hitherto not seen, which are helping farmers predict better, and now they are producing technology. A lot of service providers are cropping up by the day. And the federal government, the Federal Minister of Agriculture, a few months ago signed an agreement, a $1.1 billion equipment deal with Brazil, which tractors and other agricultural equipments will be made more available into the space. So I think we are making progress as we hope to.
Well, as we begin to wind down this program, earlier on in your comments, you said Nigerian produce is beginning to be appreciated across borders, and it's in demand. But there's also what you hear people say, that a large quantity of farm produce from Nigeria, food particularly, is being smuggled across borders.
Well, smuggling itself is an indication of somebody demanding elsewhere. I mean, I'm not supporting smuggling.
But that impacts negatively on
No, what I'm saying is suggests that there's a market.
Right.
So since there is a market somewhere, that should be a positive thing. So how do we organize that market so that we produce more and meet the need rather than buy more?
And then the consequences of pushing more out there to make more money at the detriment of sufficiency at home.
No, it's not at the detriment.
How do you balance that?
It's not at the detriment. It's an incentive to produce more. Like I said, I give an example where, for example, if you take soya beans or rice, most farmers can quadruple their yield. So if I support my farmers to quadruple their yield, meaning they can have more for their consumption and more to sell and become more prosperous. Nigeria should be a food exporter, big time. Countries with whom we are competing, they do that. Bangladesh is the size of Niger, Kebab, and Sokoto, about 149,000 square kilometers. 147. Sokoto, Kebbi, Sokoto, and Niger State were about 149,000, slightly bigger than Bangladesh. But Bangladesh produced 35 million metric tons of rice and 4 million metric tons of fisheries, even though they have 170 million people living in that land. That suggests that these three states, supported properly as the president is doing, as the central bank is doing, we should be able to produce up 30 million or upwards tons of The same thing, take the Niger Delta states, the South states, compare them to what Netherlands is doing, supported well. We should be exporting shrimps. We should be exporting rice from those communities, and so also other parts of Nigeria. So we are discovering ourselves. President Buhari has led us to discover our competencies and competitiveness in almost all agricultural products across the country.
All right, Engineer Clementonze, your final comments as we round off this program.
Thank you. From the position of the agency with regards to flooding, so NIMET continues to update Nigerians as to more rains to be expected. And where you have more rains, that is more flood to occur. So everybody, the states should prepare to address the flood that is yet to come. September is yet to come. That's the climax of flooding in Nigeria. It will continue up to November for some states in the southern part of Nigeria. So let every hand be on deck to ensure that flood does not ravage Nigeria, destruction of property, life, social services to be disrupted. We are still getting to the peak of flooding, so we should be prepared.
All right. And Architect Kabiru Ibrahim, your final comments?
The administration, in terms of waking us up to our responsibility, we, like Oliver Twist, are asking for more. The Nalda initiative is a very, very good one. We have had problems with the youth getting into agriculture. The initiative in Nalda is getting them really into it, and we are very happy for that. Some of the governors are very supportive of agriculture, and I think the chairman of the progressive governors should do more by telling his friends and his colleagues that agriculture is the coming thing, is the sine qua non to development in the third world. He has eulogized the possibilities of really making a mark or cutting a niche in the world, in the food system. And I think it's doable. It's quite commendable.
Like you asking for more, I wish I could ask for more time, but Prince Paul Ikone has just 1 minute to give us his final thoughts. Executive Secretary Nalda.
We believe that Nigerian youth should see agriculture as a way of life and as a means of livelihood. And the platform to do or to achieve that is made available to them by Nalda. And as we create an enabling environment, as we partner with the state, local government, and communities, Nigerian youths are being encouraged to identify with farming. In any area, in any aspect of farming, Nalda will encourage, and we'll keep doing our best because it's something we should do, we can do it, and we will do it.
And we must leave this conversation at this point and say thank you very much, Prince Paul Ikone, Executive Secretary Nalda. Thank you for coming. And Architect Kabir Ibrahim, National President, All Farmers Association of Nigeria. Thank you for being part of this discussion. The DG of the Hydrological Services Agency, Engineer Clementonze. It's always interesting to have you talk to us on these matters. We hope that the predictions, those concerned will heed to them this time around so we can have less disasters. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, my pleasure.
All right. And Governor Abubakar Atiku Bagudu of Kebbi State, thank you for honoring this invitation. Let me just mention once again that he's chairman of the Progressives Governors Forum.
Thank you.
Probably a platform where you can push more for the things that have been talked about here tonight.
Thank you.
And you, the Vice Chairman of the National Food Security Council. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right. And thank you also for being part of this program. Next week we'll be back with NTA Tuesday Live. I'm Cyril Stober. Continue to stay safe.